What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video. And today we're doing something a little bit different. I've kind of done this before, but usually it's pre-season, and usually then you think about kind of lessons learned at the end of the season. But I thought as it's international break, I'll do it now. So for anyone that didn't know, I did a kind of tips to get a higher ranked video in pre-season. So it's kind of talking to myself and telling myself what I was going to do this year to try and get a better rank. So in this video, I kind of want to go through how that's going. Have I made some mistakes along the way? Have I learned anything? Because we've still got 30 odd weeks to go, right? So it's not like we should just give up at this point. There's still plenty of points to play for. So I'm doing this on a Sunday. Don't usually do that, probably because I'm not going to stream tonight. There's too many ifs and buts about, you know, who's injured, who's not, etc. And we'll probably know more by Thursday's stream. So instead of doing that, I thought to do this video. As always, if it's something you enjoy, please do give it a like. It does help, lets me know that you enjoy it, helps other people see the video as well, and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. And let's get into the first one. Okay, so the way I'm going to do this is basically go through each one as I did in that video in exactly the same order, and I've highlighted the one that I've talked about. A few people have asked me to do that before, so each one is highlighted in green. That's what I'm talking about. And sometimes I will go and look at my team, look at my transfers, look at my captaincy choices as well, and talk you through that. So my current rank is 184k, which is nothing special, right? If I ended the season at 184k, I wouldn't be too happy. But for this stage of the season, with only my wild card used, I'm pretty happy with it, right? So the first one was no goalkeeper transfers. Don't need to spend too long on this. I've stuck by this. So basically what I said in the video was only transfer a goalkeeper out if they're injured, you're using your wild card, or you're free hitting. That's pretty much what I've done. I had McCarthy, I wild carded, I got in Martinez, and Martinez will now stay in my team almost certainly until he gets injured, or until I use my second wild card, or perhaps I free hit as well. There's a chance that I'll free hit before I use the wild card. And the reason for that was the same as at the time, right? You just don't know when players are going to, goalkeepers in particular, especially cheap ones, are going to get clean sheets. Using transfers for them, like the point ceiling is not high enough, right? So in terms of using a goalkeeper transfer, you do that, you might gain a couple of extra points, but usually nowhere near as much as if you made an outfield change, like a defender change, or even a forward change or a midfielder change, etc. There are players you're going to captain. You're just not going to do that with goalkeepers. Goalkeepers get save points. Sometimes the cheap ones get clean sheets out of nowhere. I think McCarthy's got 4 clean sheets in the first 8. We know Martinez is doing well. He saved a penalty already and got a few clean sheets too. So for me, that's going to keep going. I don't necessarily think that's the best way to get a higher rank necessarily. I don't think it's the one that's going to be, you know, the be all and end all when you get to the end of the season. But I do think it can be detrimental if you do that too often throughout the course of the season. So the second one was don't waste transfers, which, as I said at the time, sounded a bit obvious, right? You don't want to waste transfers. You want to use them on important players to bring in, maybe important players to take out. Either they're injured, they're not performing, whatever it might be. But the interesting thing in that video is I gave the example of Trent Alexander-Arnold and said that sometimes we get consistent performers and we still look to take them out. Maybe it's for a fixture here or there, maybe it's 1 or 2 fixtures, and then we just want to get them back. We probably have to end up paying more, we probably miss out on some points along the way, and generally it's not worth it, right? If you're going to take a player out and bring them back in almost straight away, and by straight away I mean within like 2 to 3 weeks, usually it's not worth it. Now, when an injury happens, right, like the Salah situation right now with COVID, if he's out for 2 or 3 weeks, which I don't think he will be, by the way, but just an example, that's a little bit different. If Salah's fully fit and you're taking him out for 2 bad fixtures, but then he's got a run of 5 good ones after, probably not worth a transfer. Now, if I look at my transfers so far, right, this is what I've done. I don't think I've taken out too many players but badly. I don't think I've wasted too many transfers, right? Obviously, Game Week 5 was my wild card, so you can kind of ignore that. I did take out Trent Alexander-Arnold to fund my move to Rashford. I didn't feel like that was a waste because of what's going on at Liverpool. Obviously, Van Dijk was injured. I still think, had everyone else been fit, Robertson, Trent and Gomez, they probably still could have got some clean sheets along the way. Obviously, as it stands now, there's like 3 of the back 4 probably going to be missing. But it funded a better move, and I also think Chilwell can do really well. So it's a little bit different to last year, because last year I got rid of him thinking I'm probably going to want him back. This year I was quite confident in not wanting him back straight away, no matter what kind of damage he could do. Size to Reguilon on the wildcard was fine, although it didn't feel like that at the time. Aubameyang to De Bruyne was always the play anyway. I always had that in the back of my mind. Pulisic and Vinagre, well, I didn't expect one to not start and the other one to be injured. So certainly no transfers wasted. I'm going to talk about these a little bit more detail when I talk about hits and stuff like that, because I do think I've made a few mistakes with hits. But overall, I don't think I've taken out too many consistent performers. Like taking out Che Adams on a wild card to more pay, okay, I could have kept him in basically because underlying stats were good and his fixtures were okay. But on a wild card, it's a little bit of a different situation, I think. So in terms of wasting transfers, I don't feel like I've done that, so I kind of stuck to this one as well. So far, 2 out of 8, doing all right. So this one's quite interesting, right? Don't force players out. Now, just in case you didn't watch that video, I'm going to explain a few of these. So this one was basically, you've got a player that's maybe underperforming, but perhaps you've got a better transfer to make, there's a more important transfer to make, they might have good fixtures which could turn around. There's just no point in absolutely forcing a player out. So one last season I did was Danny Ings. I forced him out to get some extra money that I didn't even want to use that week, and he ended up doing really well, and I ended up getting him back in. Now, if we go back to the transfer list again, you can maybe say this about Adams and Maupay, right? Adams' underlying stats were good. I even said that at the time. I even tweeted that it was an injustice that he hadn't scored yet. You felt that it was coming, but because I was on a wildcard, I got rid. I'm not going to beat myself up too much about that, although I will say I made that transfer during the first international break, and I wasn't choosing to wildcard until I made those early transfers and then got stung by Kevin De Bruyne. So if there's a new lesson learned, which we're kind of in the middle of again now, is I think especially with COVID and stuff, you've got to be careful about early transfers in the international break. I got hurt by it in the first one this season, and in this one I haven't made any moves and I am not going to. I don't care how much the prices go up or down, I'm just not going to do that. So that's not something that I thought about pre-season, but it's something I'm thinking about now. Obviously it's too late now if you've already made them, but I just wanted to talk about that. So a player that's in my team, right, that probably don't force players out. So if we go back to this screen, right, I'm just kind of doing this half live while I'm recording. So a player that I keep getting told that I should get rid of is Maupay. Now, if I was wildcarding this week, would I have Maupay in my team? Absolutely not, right? I just wouldn't have him. I think he could do well. It's a bit like the Adams situation. While I'm wildcarding, I've got a chance to get rid of him, so I probably would. But when I look at my team, right, and let's say that everyone's fit, because I don't want to go too much into my transfer thoughts and plans in this video. It's not that kind of video. Let's say Rashford and Salah are fit. So I've got this whole team. I can make whatever move I want because everyone's fit. Everyone's going to be playing. So is Maupay to Watkins or Antonio, if he's fit, the right play here when I've got two big hitters in Kane and Son? We'll call Son a big hitter for the purpose of this. With pretty tough fixtures, I could get a Man City player in with good fixtures. I've spoken about this a lot. I could get Watkins or Antonio in for Kane instead. Is Maupay my number one transfer, right? People keep saying he's in poor form, he's not playing well, he can't finish. Maybe you're right, okay? But if you go and look at the points between him and Che Adams, and by the way, everyone's loving Che Adams right now, the points are very similar. It's just that Che Adams got his between 5 and 8. Maupay got his between 1 and 4. Who's to say over the next 8 fixtures they won't continue being close? Like, Maupay has Villa, Southampton and Fulham in the next 5. I'm not saying 100% that Maupay is going to do well, but for me, this will come back to forcing a player out, and I just don't think it's worth it. Like, if I look at my team, logically, Son and Kane are probably the ones to go for, because ultimately they're going to hopefully give me the most points return, right? Because I'm going to captain Man City players, and I think some of the cheaper forwards maybe could try and keep up with Kane, almost, maybe not completely, but almost because of the fixtures he's got. I don't think transferring out Maupay and leaving Kane and Son versus Man City is the play for me. So I do think I haven't forced players out so far this season. I'm really trying to stick with that. It might not work out. Obviously, with all these things, I'm basing this off 8 game weeks. In another 8 game weeks, I might have a different point of view. But right now, Maupay stays, and I'm trying to stick to the don't force players out. Ignore ownership, right? It's something I always try and do. And I do know the ownership of some players because I'll often make videos maybe thinking about differentials or doing a team about the template where I have to check the most owned players. If I check my rank on livefpl.net, there's a template ranking for like the top 10k, I think. So it shows you how much percentage of your team is also included in the template team. And I'll tell you now, mine's quite high. I think in the last week, going into game week 8, it was 74%. Now, a lot of people go down this route of thinking you need differentials to climb up the ranks, right? There'll be people now sitting at kind of 2 or 3 million, right? Which isn't that far behind where I am at 184k. It's only like 40 or 50 points, I think. It's not too much more than that, especially if you're around 1 million, it's even closer. And thinking, right, I have to go different. We're only 8 weeks in, right? And to give you an example, right, if I come down to this, and by the way, I'm not saying that I will get a high rank finish 100%, and I'm not saying that 184k is brilliant, and I'm not saying it won't drop over the next few weeks. But right now I'm doing okay. And the reason I point this out is, if you look between game week 7 and 8, right, I had a 74% template team. Now, some people will turn around and say, great, but you didn't catch up with those people. Fair enough. But I went up from 308k to to 184k with a team that everyone would look at and say, that's template, no good, you'll never climb up the ranks. People overemphasize the amount or the need for differentials. And I said it before when I did the preseason video, and I'll say it in this one. If a player's got higher ownership and I think they are the better option, I will bring them in. I do not care, right? I'm probably going to bring in both Man City players, and it has gone through my mind about whether to go for Sterling before De Bruyne, because I know he's lower owned. I don't know what their actual percentage ownership is, but I know that Sterling's lower owned, right? It's just obvious. We saw that in pre-season. Everyone's talking about De Bruyne anyway. So do I go for him so I'm not going to captain him? If I think De Bruyne is the better option, I'm just going to bring him in. The same way I've got Salah, right? I own Rashford, not Fernandes. That's nothing to do with ownership, right? Fernandes might be the better option if Man United keep getting penalties, but I'm hoping if they don't, Rashford's the better option. And if he's lower owned, even better. And that is the key for me. If a player is lower owned, that's great. That's perfect. Yes, it's a good way to climb up the ranks. If they're not, I do not care. I don't care that everyone's looking to get Grealish in. If he's going to keep getting points over Christmas, I want him in my team. Maybe at the end of the season, we start looking at differentials a little bit more to kind of lock ourselves into that top 10k, try and get that top 1k, try and win the thing, who knows. But right now, for the most part, I'm just ignoring ownership. It literally does not come into my thinking at all. And I really do think it helps me because I don't make my decisions on players based on who else owns them, because quite frankly it doesn't matter as much as people say. I couldn't care less, to be honest. So start with known quantities was one of the things that I wanted to do to try and get a high rank this season. Now as the season goes on, this obviously changes quite a bit, although you're still looking for players that are known quantities, right? You don't want to necessarily go for someone completely out of the blue that you necessarily have a hunch on. If you want to play like that, that's absolutely fine. And I wouldn't want to take that away from people, because I wish I could play like that a little bit more, but you want something behind that hunch, right? That's something behind that gut feeling, whether it's a fixture, a team performance, a recent performance, underlying stats or something to go with. So you still want to start or carry on with known quantities. You don't want to bring the players out in and just captain them for the hell of it, right? As a general rule, that doesn't work that often. When it does work, it feels amazing, but it doesn't happen that often. So this was mostly like a game week one thing, and I think I did that when I started, right? I had Mitchell in my team instead of Shaw. There was a little bit of weirdness going on this season, obviously, because Man United didn't play in game week one, so it was a little bit different, so I was happy to play Mitchell. Even if he wasn't a known quantity, cheap Crystal Palace defenders, and Crystal Palace defence generally is. I knew Saiss, I knew Trent Alexander-Arnold were all fine. Aubameyang was in. There was no Mitrovic here, although I did consider him quite strongly. There was no Bamford or anyone like that, and like you could turn around and say, well, there you go, you missed out on Bamford. But in most seasons, I'm not going to miss out on a player like that, and I can wait to get them in. It's not going to hurt me too much. Like Pulisic was obviously a mistake. I wouldn't say I should have realised he was still injured, because Frank said he was okay for game week one, or he said he should be available, and ended up not being true. But ultimately, I ended up with a lot of known quantities and did okay. Now, Werner, you could say, is not one, but for me, it meant known quantities is in players we've seen perform well in FPL before, who we can rely on regularly, or players that have done it before, good underlying numbers from a top league like the Bundesliga for Werner, coming into a top team. If we're talking about different lessons learned here that weren't on my original, FPL higher tips for a higher rank or whatever video it was back then yeah, maybe we should say, well, Chelsea had a lot of players to come together. We weren't too sure about Pulisic. Ziyech was injured, and it was a bit muddled up. And obviously now we're seeing them click. Now everyone's kind of fit, apart from maybe Pulisic again. So that's something to think about. But in terms of the players I started with, I'm quite happy, and I'm going to continue doing that for this season, right? Known quantities, underlying stats, fixtures, good team, good performances, past performances, whatever it might be, they're the kind of players that I want to bring in. So 0 captaincy punts, I've definitely stuck to this, and it's gone really well, right? So if we look at the team, if I go for every single week, I basically, and by 0 captaincy punts, again, I just mean getting in. If I think the player is going to score the most points, I'm going to captain that player. And again, I don't care what their ownership is. I don't care if everyone else is doing it. I don't care if the fixture looks tough. If they are the best player, they are getting captain. Now, again, I could go lesson learned here. Salah at home, was it a bit crazy not to captain him? But he did get 2 penalties against Leeds, right? And Aubameyang was also playing a newly promoted side. And quite frankly, I didn't know how poor Arsenal were going to be in attack for the first 8 game weeks of the season. And still, Aubameyang got a return, right? And I think ultimately getting a return is what it is. And I've got 7 out of 8 so far. And again, I'm not saying that I'm going to get 7 out of 8 for the next 8 game weeks. I might only get 1. But going for known quantities, essentially, 0 captaincy punts has worked quite well. So it was Aubameyang game week 1 and game week 2, right? So he only got 5 points. It was just an assist. Again, Salah blanked though. Werner blanked. Calvert-Lewin hat-trick, right? I wasn't banking on that. Game week 3, I think it was Salah. Again, just an assist, but no blank in a week where other players like De Bruyne blanked. A lot of people captained him. I think a lot of people captained De Bruyne this week as well. Again, Salah at home, I think it was in this week. Best captain option, 26 points. Sorry, it was away to Villa, but again, pretty good fixture, which is why I went for him. And then, who was it? Kane. Again, not a punt at all. He was doing really well. Salah blank, that was my only blank. And obviously Son got his goal against Burnley, which was a bit frustrating. And then Salah captain again. And then it wasn't Salah here, it was Kane. He got his 9 points. Salah matched him anyway. So far, pretty good. Like if I look to this week, this week might be a bit different, right? Because if Salah misses game week 9, then I don't want to captain Son or Kane against Man City. So then it's Rashford against West Brom. I wouldn't call that a punt because of the fixture. Or Grealish versus Brighton. Now, I don't care how good Grealish is doing. Like you look at all those players I got to choose from. Grealish is not the best captaincy option if they're all fit. But if they're not, then yeah, maybe we go for him this week, and I wouldn't call that a punt. But if he was fit, Rashford was fit, Salah was fit, Salah 100% is a better option than Grealish, right? Much more goal threat on a normal game, penalties, etc. We know how good he is. So it's worked for me so far, and I want to continue that for the rest of the season. Again, maybe at the end of the season, right, when you're, ranked 12,000, you want to get into the top 10k, maybe you do go a little bit different with the captaincy. It all depends on the circumstances of the time. But so far, no punts has worked out really well. 7 returns in 8. They might not all be huge hauls, which is what obviously you would like, but a return is a return, and I'm quite happy with it. So don't judge the outcome is a tricky one for a lot of people. Right? I've done this before. You transfer a player out, you've got all the best intentions, they've not been playing well, the fixtures are coming up, and then they get a big haul, right, in the next game or in the next couple of games. You're like, why did I transfer them out? But that's judging the outcome. If you've made the transfer for the right reasons, then you shouldn't be annoyed when you get it wrong, because more often than not, you'd hope you get it right. So just coming back to my transfers again, so far, I don't think I've made a transfer where I've really regretted, where I've made the wrong decision. Now, again, there's some things I'm not quite sure I've made the right decision for different reasons, because I didn't chase team value, but I tried to block losing value quite a bit at the start, right? So Vinagre and Pulisic were both going to drop. I could only afford Luka Dean and Rodriguez if I did it straight away. Didn't really regret that. I wasn't expecting Everton defence to be as bad as it was. In that first game, I was really impressed against Spurs. It was only 1-0, but I just felt like with Decore and Allen, they were going to be tight defensively. I forgot how bad Pickford can be, basically. And Rodriguez came in and he was decent as well. Aubameyang, yeah, nothing wrong with that. Okay, here's one. Saint-Maximin and Werner left my team for a hit for Jimenez and Foden. Now, I won't go into too much detail about Jimenez and Foden. Look, maybe getting them in was a mistake because I hate players that aren't nailed to start, which is Foden, and I promptly got rid of him on my wildcard. I essentially hit Jimenez and Foden in to then wildcard them out the next week. So that was a poor decision, but I didn't wildcard for those two. I wildcarded for a number of reasons. But Saint-Maximin, he went and scored well, right? Saint-Maximin and Werner did better than Jimenez and Foden that week I did it. But Saint-Maximin, I think he was flagged, and I just didn't expect him to do too much. He hadn't done a huge amount in the first few game weeks anyway, and so I wanted to get rid of him. Now, in some ways, maybe I forced him out a little bit, going back to that previous point. He was just a cheap player, but I felt like getting Foden and Jimenez in at the time was a good idea, and the fact that Saint-Maximin then went and scored well, who cares? Like, he's hardly done anything since, so that would be judging the outcome. I saw a lot of people doing that. That was a mistake. It wasn't a mistake to get rid of Saint-Maximin. And I look at my other ones, like, okay, I've got a massive wild card there. Saiss, I went for the Reguilon punt. Saiss kind of punished me a little bit in the first 2 games. The fact that Reguilon missed the Burnley game and missed the clean sheet was a bit frustrating. But again, I don't think I judged the outcome there. The decision was right, I think, to go for a bit of a punt on my wild card. Everyone else is quite safe options. So yeah, I don't think I've judged the outcome too much. Maybe that's because we're only 8 weeks in. But I am trying to stick to that, right? You have to have a good reason to transfer someone out and transfer someone in. If it goes wrong, that's just the way it is. I'm getting rid of Kane and Son, probably this week, depending on what happens on Salah, because of the bad fixtures. I'll stand by that, even if they go and score against Man City. Of course, it could happen, but you'd expect most of the time for players to blank against Man City. So that would be judging the outcome. In my mind, it's an okay transfer. If it goes wrong, so be it. So I think not judging the outcome can be really beneficial to, like, even things like mental health when you play FPL, right? People struggle with that when they make a decision that goes wrong. But if you're making it for the right reasons, you have to just know the FPL will go wrong sometimes. Not everyone gets lucky for the whole season and gets green arrow after green arrow after green arrow. Sometimes you're going to get things wrong. But as long as you make the right decision for the right reasons, you shouldn't judge what the points are. Only the reasons you made that transfer, basically. So the next one is give hits a lot of thought. Obviously, don't just do it willy-nilly. Don't say, oh, I'm going to take a hit here. I'm definitely going to take a hit next week. And I think with hits, I said this in the video I did before, I wouldn't go into the season thinking, I'm taking no hits, I'm going to take loads of hits, I'm going to be somewhere in between. You should take each one kind of as it comes. And again, I go back to my transfers. It's kind of hard to talk about it too much because since the wildcard, I haven't taken any hits, right? I didn't make a transfer in game week 6, then I used 2 in game week 7 and none for game week 8. So I've got 2 free transfers going into game week 9. And I did take hits at the start. And again, it's going to come down to, you know, is chasing team value worth it? Because that's why I took those hits. I wanted to get Rodriguez and Luca Dean in because I thought they looked good for Everton. But also I knew they were going to go up in price. And I got a lot of money out of Rodriguez in particular. And I knew Pulisic and Vinagre were going to go down. It's too hard to say after 8 game weeks whether that was worth it. Right? Maybe it wasn't. We'll find out later on in the season whether that team value is absolutely worth doing for. But again, the big one that stands out to me is probably Werner and Saint-Maximin. Jimenez had that Fulham game. And I was really drawn to that. And obviously Foden had been doing quite well for Man City, and he looked like he was going to keep starting, which he did for a few weeks, and then he hasn't started the last 3. That for me, I don't know if I gave it enough thought, but Saint-Maximin was going to drop in price again. So I gave it thought in that I didn't want to lose the value, but maybe chasing that value won't work by the end of the season, right? And that's really what I'm going to have to see about it, because the wild card in game week 5, that was because I took Adams and Shaw out, who were going to drop in price, and then I got stung by De Bruyne being injured, and so I had to take him out as well. And then I ended up wildcarding because I thought I need to get Son, I might as well get Kane as well. And so that hurt me as well. So did I give it a lot of thought? I think I probably got drawn to the price change, which I don't like doing. But when you're losing money on players you don't necessarily want to keep long term, like basically it's very difficult at the start of the season because there's so many transfers being made, lots of players going up and down in price that you maybe haven't considered, or suddenly are out of the blue not playing well or not looking like they're going to play well. And so it's hard to kind of really draw a conclusion, whereas in a few more weeks it's a bit different. I'm not necessarily looking at the prices then. I am literally just talking about whether I should take that player out for a hit. And I've got to be honest, my mind right now is to try and not do that too much. Like try and rely on my bench, especially if I want to keep a player, etc. So I do think you should give hits a lot of thought. Is it the right decision? Are the players you're taking out, do they really need to go? Are you trying to force a player out? Kind of a few of these you have to bring in together, right? Taking hits, forcing players out, etc. And I don't think I've forced players out with hits, but I have definitely tried to protect team value, and it's too early to say whether that's worthwhile. Like Adams is probably the one that I regret the most because I saw his underlying stats. I only transferred him out because if I wasn't going to lose value on him, I don't think I would have transferred him out. I probably would have just dealt with Shaw and been done with it. So I think the key is not necessarily the hits thing, like giving hits a lot of thought. It's probably more to do with the team value. So overall with these kind of things to stick by throughout the season, I think I've done okay. No goalkeeper transfers, absolutely. Not wasting transfers mostly. I haven't really forced too many players out, and we're going to see if that works with more pay over the next 4 to 5 game weeks. If I keep them that long, I'm not saying I definitely will. If I get a free transfer and nothing else to do with my team, I might look to take them out. Definitely ignore ownership. Definitely keep with the known quantities for the most part. Like Bamford for me now becomes pretty much a known quantity, but he wasn't before. So players can change, right? You don't only get players in that have scored points in previous seasons. 0 captaincy punts, absolutely. Do not judge the outcome and give hits a lot of thought. So let me know if you found that useful to be going back through that after just 8 game weeks. So that's it for this one. I hope it was helpful. It's kind of looking back at how I've dealt with them so far, but also reiterating any of them for people that maybe haven't watched or at the time thought they were going to do it and then they haven't really been doing it and now they want to kind of change their strategy going forward. And it's not to say that I'm absolutely right and you should definitely follow this. Maybe you've got some different kind of tips for how to get a good rank for the rest of this season or to get more FPL points, etc. And if you do, leave me a comment down below. I'll be happy to hear how things have changed since the start of the season, because on my previous video a lot of people had tips. Have things changed? Are things going well? If they're not going well, what are you going to change going forward? If you've enjoyed this type of video, please do give it a like. It's international break. We're doing some different things. We're trying out some new stuff. Basically, from next week all the way over Christmas, it is just non-stop FPL. And even over Christmas, when there's going to be short turnaround times, I'm going to have a hell of a lot of content out there as well. So keep an eye out for that. Please do hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. And last thing, I just want to do a shout out to the patrons, patreon.com/Let's Talk FPL. There's a link in the description below. So I just wanted to show everyone that's signed up. Thanks very much. And a shout out to everyone that's signed up since the last video/stream, which is Maz, Jack G, Sard A, Callum F, and Georgio C. Hopefully I've not butchered any names there, but big shout out to everyone that's signed up. Really do appreciate the support over there. So the link in the description below if you want to check that out. There's Slack access, WhatsApp access, early team reveals, all these videos converted to podcasts, loads of stuff over there, so make sure to check it out. Please do hit the like button if you've enjoyed this video. Hit subscribe if you are new around here as well. As I said before, like, why not? We're on our way to 125k. I'll be back tomorrow for the watch this video, then team selection, then game week preview, then a stream, then a deadline stream on Friday or Saturday, whenever the deadline is. I've forgotten at this point, and all that content for the rest of this season. Thanks very much for watching. I'll catch you again soon.